From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, where I've been knee-deep researching for an event I'm going to be working on that I have never been involved with before. I'll tell you more about that next week. But in the meantime, very excited for the Women's World Cup starting over in New Zealand. Although it's been pretty hard to concentrate on much, what with the events going on much closer to home here in Europe, in Ukraine. But I have to say, Jim and Charu, having you to speak to is a very welcome distraction.
Yes, sport is a bit of a distraction when these events occur. So the distraction here is the water. If you're not amphibious, you just won't survive. I mean, there's so much water in southeast Queensland, northern New South Wales, floods everywhere, even on the verge of Sydney. We've got floods at the moment. We've had a bucket load of rain, and they've already called all the cricket off in Sydney yesterday for the weekend. So that's how bad it is. So hopefully we'll dry out at some point. But at the moment, the only time it stops is for the clouds to go away and get a refill and dump on us again.
Hello, everybody. This is Charu Sharma for All India Radio. Glad to be here because we've got the Davis Cup on this weekend. India taking on Denmark, and we're playing at on a grass surface here at the Delhi Gymkhana Club, where in fact there was a special edition of Stump some time back. The courts have been prettied up and readied for this wonderful contest. But of course, plenty of cricket too. India can't seem to put a foot wrong against the West Indies earlier, against the Sri Lankans in white ball cricket, and now it's a little bit of red ball cricket here as well, which is an important one amongst others for Virat Kohli. We'll see how that goes.
Right, we are going to start this week's show with the Women's 50 Over World Cup because it's getting underway in New Zealand 391 days after it was originally meant to happen. Of course, it was postponed due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. 8 teams are taking part, and only England, Australia and the host New Zealand have ever lifted the Women's World Cup trophy. So we wonder this time whether a new name could end up being on the trophy. Now, I've been speaking to Andrea Nelson, who's the chief executive of the ICC Women's World Cup, and she's been telling me how she's feeling about the event and the preparations put in place.
Look, it's been a journey longer than we expected at the outset, and it's had many twists and turns. To finally be at the action point of this tournament is, I can't tell you how excited the team and I are to make it happen. And to see the athletes here in Christchurch and around New Zealand, it's just a real buzz for us.
How challenging has it been, given that the original tournament was postponed due to the pandemic?
Yeah, look, I think when we set out to do this tournament, we talked about what we wanted to achieve. And that was to kind of own our moment on the journey of women's sport and kind of showcase New Zealand in that journey. And we are the first of 3 World Cups that are happening here. So it's a really exciting moment in time. That really sustained us through what has been a really challenging couple of years. You know, we initially were postponed for very good reasons due to the kind of lack of the ability of the teams to prepare and qualify. And it's such an important event on the women's cricket calendar that it was important that the teams had the chance to prepare well. And some of the teams weren't even able to gather at that point. So it was the right decision to postpone. New Zealand's been on its own journey. You know, we've had a different COVID journey to many other countries. And so there've been many twists and turns along the way. So as I say, I'm just so excited we're finally here.
Yeah, what is the actual situation in New Zealand COVID-wise at the moment? What conditions will the players be operating under when the tournament gets going?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we are in our first real COVID wave that has happened here in New Zealand. So previously, the country undertook a more of a zero COVID policy, but obviously with the emergence of Omicron, we're currently experiencing a wave, the biggest New Zealand's ever seen. But broadly speaking, it's not significantly different to the way cricket's operated around the world for the last 2 years. So whilst here in New Zealand, it can be a bit of an unusual time, the players are living, you know, in a managed event environment so that we're looking after them in their hotels, they're flying domestic charters. You know, there's the ability to get out and about and do safe activities. New Zealand is a lovely outdoor country with lots of space and lots of fun things you can do without being in crowded environments. So we're really looking after the team's well-being in that way. And then in terms of the crowds, I guess the biggest impact for us is at the moment. You know, at the moment I'm talking to you, and it could change at any point, really. We are operating with really reduced crowds. So we can bring people in pods of 100. And they each need to have their own sort of services. So it means the numbers are restricted right down to probably below 10%.
Yeah, do you feel that, I mean, this seems to have been a particularly big year for women's sport, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, and I can't tell you enough here in New Zealand, we have Our Deputy Prime Minister, who's also our Minister of Sport, laid out when the government was first elected that women in sport was the number one priority for them. And it is absolutely true in the way sport is developing here. We're a few years behind England in some ways in professionalisation of some of our codes, but we have 3 World Cups. So we've got this one. Later this year, we have rugby. Next year, we're co-hosting the FIFA World Cup with Australia. That is going to be a total step change. We're talking about supercharging years of development in women's sport. But also, I'd really, cricket is such a leader in this space. The domestic competition, the Super Smash here, has been played out with double headers, often with the women playing second on primetime free-to-air television. And the impact that's had, I'll tell you, this summer when I was playing cricket with my 6-year-old nephew and he hit a 6, he yelled out, "Sophie Devine!" And yes. I thought, well, that shows you that things are changing.
What do you want, Andrea, the legacy of this tournament to be?
Yeah, so we've got some really amazing physical legacies here in New Zealand. And one thing I'm particularly proud of, and it was actually when I went for my job interview for this role, I talked about the fact that female athletes often can't change at the facilities after they perform because they had the toilets don't have cubicles, the showers don't have walls or doors. As a result of this tournament, all of the facilities at all of our venues are now female friendly. So that's a fantastic. Huge physical investment.
That's sort of a small thing. You just imagine that is in place anyway.
Well, you'd think so, but you talk at Eden Park, there were 2 cubicles. So if you imagine even the rugby team going on to play, having to queue up or use the public loos, it shows you sometimes it's the small things. And on top of that, we've got, new lights at Hagley Oval. So the final will be under lights here in Christchurch. And then you might know Christchurch was really significantly impacted by the earthquakes. So, to see that rebuild, it really is going to bring international cricket here for generations to come. But I think the biggest legacy is the profile of the sport, of the players. And for, I'm the mother of 2 boys and one of them is a total cricket nut. And he sees no difference between, Kane Williamson and Sophie Devine. To him, they are the same. And that's the legacy I think that we can leave as an event and as part of the journey of women's cricket.
And if I can get you to put a cricket punditry hat on to finish with, mention New Zealand winning in 2000. It's the only time that a country other than England and Australia has lifted the trophy. With your New Zealand heart beating in your chest, do you think they could cause an upset?
Look, I think it would be an upset, but absolutely, I think they can cause it. I've had the privilege of getting to know the women in the Whiteford a little bit over the last couple of years, and they're incredibly impressive. And a real combination of some long-standing talent and some new up-and-coming faces. So they've got the advantage of knowing the grounds. They have been playing, as you see, 4-1 against India in the recent one-day series. They've been playing over the summer at these grounds. So if they're going to be able to pull it off, this is the tournament they'll be able to do it in. And as a tournament organiser, I will welcome any winner, but as a Kiwi, I will, of course, be backing the Whitebirds.
Andrea, an absolute pleasure speaking to you and best wishes for the tournament. We'll be following it, of course, very closely on Stumped.
Thank you, Alison.
That's Andrea Nelson, the Chief Executive of the ICC Women's World Cup. So just a few things there I want to pick up on what she was saying there. And the first one is, I suppose, that question of legacy, but firstly, the way the tournament is distributed and how widely it will be seen, free to air on television in New Zealand, no less, but around the world as well. But just simply for New Zealand, Jim, it's going to be a huge boost for women's game, for women's sport in the country.
Well, yes, as women's cricket has been in most countries where it's had success, and it's not just Australia, but also with India and Pakistan coming into it, the West Indies, England, South Africa. Yes, it'll be a big boost. An even bigger one, given that New Zealand, as it were, squandered an opportunity in men's cricket to beat South Africa for the first time ever in a test series by being outplayed, if we can put it that way, with a strange-looking bowling attack that didn't have a spinner in it in the test in Christchurch. So now that all the attention in terms of cricket can switch to what's happening with the New Zealand women's team, which clearly at home is going to be powerful. Just go on Sophie Devine's little warm-up the other day against Australia when they splattered the Australian bowlers and won the game by 9 wickets, chasing over 300. So they've got their window of opportunity. And as you've said, if it's on free-to-air TV, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it will be the most widely distributed women's cricket event of all time. The ICC have made that clear, and they've put out the details of how widely it will be seen. It's estimated to reach 1 billion fans. Every match will be available live, which is a step up from the 2017 tournament, where many were, but not all of them live. There was a big push, and many were then quite late put on digital streaming commentary online. Charu, the increase in prize money is significant, isn't it? Even if countries around the world aren't up with the likes of Australia, England in terms of professionalism domestically.
Well, of course, it's very big. I mean, that's one global indication that the game is on the up. And it may not make a significant difference to somebody's pocket right now, but the impression, the optics is very important. And it's just great to see the escalation too. I mean, it's been fabulous. So I'm not saying only money drives the game, because all the ladies who play right now just play because of sheer passion, but it's a massive help. And also in terms of PR, in terms of the press that the event gets, people do seem to be very impressed with the amount of money that is in a game. So overall, without question, it's a huge step forward to draw the world's attention on women's cricket.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on ABC and All India Radio.
OK, let's turn our attention to Pakistan, where Australia's men have arrived for the first time since 1998 to play a 3-match test series. It's a momentous visit given Pakistan's long-term exile from home internationals and the fact that both New Zealand and England pulled out of tours only last year. Now, Pakistan are due to host 8 tests, 11 ODIs and 13 2020 internationals in the next 13 months. Charu, it really is brilliant, isn't it, to see the Aussies touring Pakistan 24 years since they were last there. It seems scarcely believable.
Yeah, sounds a ridiculous amount of time, doesn't it? And I did say earlier on Stump that, I'll believe it when Australia are, in fact, Pakistan. Pakistan at home, like just about any other nation, were very strong. It's just that they haven't played at home for so many years. And no better opposition, really, in terms of global standards. Well, of course, there's India and England, but I think it's a very strong Australian side that's visiting. I know some other players are missing, but apart from that, I just hope Australia are in the right frame of mind, because we don't want the attention going on security all the time and security arrangements, because sometimes that can whittle away at your confidence, and the whole psychological end of it could be a bit of a problem. I hope Australia are in a good frame of mind and they're feeling comfortable in Pakistan, because we certainly don't want any extraneous reasons why one team did better than the other. But I do think the stage is set for a terrific restart to cricket in Pakistan, because those guys are starved. They love their cricket. And to not have the bigger, better countries playing in Pakistan is just such a dampener for the millions of cricket fans in Pakistan.
Well, they seem happy, the players, that is, the Aussies, setting up their usual coffee room in their tea room, team cafe that they have. You've got to hope that COVID doesn't scupper it, because, of course, that's the other thing that is still bubbling around. And Fawad Ahmed was meant to be part of the Australian backroom staff, and he's tested positive, having joined up with the camp from the Pakistan Super League. But Jim, playing-wise, what can we expect from this Australian side? Because even after a 4-0 series win against England, there are still some selection questions to be answered, and a bit of unrest with the sudden axing of their physio, it seems, as well.
I just don't think Pakistan are going to be able to match it with this Australian side over the course of 3 matches, unless a couple of their key batsmen, like Babar Azam in particular, get away. And there'll be some pretty flat pitches too, so that might make it hard for the bowlers. But I think Australia are well knitted, well organised and well led, and they've certainly got a huge security blanket around them. I don't think any cricket team in the history of the game has got as much security around them as Australia. They've even got their own hotel, apparently. No one else is staying there. So Pakistan have gone out of their way to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And I gather Imran Khan's photo, his presence is everywhere. So there's a feeling that this is a very big event.
And one player, Jim, for whom the tour is going to have some extra significance is Usman Khawaja, because he was born in Pakistan, of course. And a couple of months ago, he would have thought he might have only been carrying the drinks. But yeah, twin centuries at the SCG in the Ashes against England. And now he's, a big favourite to start. And that really will have a lot of meaning for him, won't it?
Well, I think it's also going to help Pat Cummins get connected with the locals because of the go-between that Usman Khawaja is in being able to tell his players about Pakistan. All this is happy times for Australia and for Usman Khawaja, who I assume will be opening the innings alongside David Warner. He might even be the player of the series, the way things are moving, with a look of some good pitches to bat on. But yes, I think for Australia, it's important to have someone like that there, just to sort of ease the way into the comfort that they need, the sort of assurance on and off the field that they're in a good space. So it's a very timely, convenient move that Usman Khawaja is playing for Australia.
And Charu, what do you reckon to the depth of this Pakistan squad? Because there are a couple of injuries, aren't there, already? Hassan Ali, the fast bowler, and Fahim Ashraf, the all-rounder, are both going to miss the first test. How do you see them shaping up?
Well, this is a difficult one for them to swallow because they're certainly one of their finest 11, if not 14. And Hassan Ali's absence is going to hurt because, yes, he's been up and down once in a while. He's a very quick bowler. He does tend to bowl too many boundary deliveries. That's going to hurt them a lot. And Fahim, too, of course, because he can pitch in with the ball, too. So now, to my mind, yes, they've got plenty of other bowlers. I mean, there's Haris Rauf, who does a great job. Shaheen Shah Afridi, record-in-chief in the last few matches he's played. And perhaps Mohammad Amir. So they're not badly off in the fast bowling department. I just wonder if this absence of Hassan Ali is something that will lead to a change in pitch conditions, because they do have some very good spin. They might now start leaning more towards spin than fast bowling. And that's the one way they can combat this. But Pakistan, as you know, Alice and Jim, always somehow seem to have all sorts of fast bowlers in the cabinet somewhere, locked up, youngsters who are thrown into the deep end, and most of them done very well. So, it's just one of those psychological things, losing for the moment a top bowler, but I'm sure they have many more in the cabinet.
Yeah, it's going to be a really intriguing test series to follow, that's for sure. Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped here on All India Radio. Don't forget you can follow us throughout the week on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport. Just use the hashtag BBC Stumped. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube as well. Just search for the BBC World Services YouTube channel. My thanks to Charu Sharma and Jim Maxwell. And of course, to you all for listening and watching. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.